If you have tried every diet, cut every carb, and the fat around your middle is still there, this is not a willpower problem. It is not a discipline problem. It is not even a food problem. It is a morning problem. Specifically, something that happens inside your body within the first 30 minutes of waking that is silently telling your fat cells to hold on no matter what you eat for the rest of the day. Japan has an obesity rate of roughly 4%. The United States sits above 40. The difference is not genetics. A landmark study comparing Japanese people living in Japan with Japanese Americans eating Western diets found that the weight gap between the two groups was explained almost entirely by daily habit differences, not DNA, same genes, completely different bodies, because of what happens in the morning. Stay with me because habit 5 on this list is the one that works against you even when you think you are being healthy. And habit 7 is the one nobody mentions, the one that quietly undoes every other effort you make, starting from the moment your alarm goes off. 7 habits. All free, all available to you tomorrow morning before you have eaten a single thing. Before we get into the 7 habits, one mechanism worth understanding, because once you understand this, everything on this list will immediately make sense. Your body has a hormone called cortisol. It is not the villain it is sometimes made out to be. It is the hormone that wakes you up, creates alertness, and prepares you to face the demands of the day. Every morning within 30 minutes of waking, cortisol rises steeply. Scientists call this the cortisol awakening response. It is natural. It is necessary. The problem is not that it rises. The problem is what happens when it rises too high, too fast, or stays elevated for too long. Research published in the journal Obesity has consistently linked elevated morning cortisol with one specific outcome: increased abdominal fat storage. Not fat in general, abdominal fat specifically, where your body wraps it around the organs as a form of biological protection against what it perceives as sustained threat. This is why some women can eat clean, exercise regularly, do everything they believe is right, and still carry weight around their middle that will not move. They are fighting a hormonal signal with dietary tools that were never designed to touch it. 7 Japanese morning habits address the cortisol problem directly, and when the cortisol problem is addressed, the abdominal fat problem tends to follow. Habit number 1, and this is the one most people get completely backwards every single morning. After 7 or 8 hours of sleep without a single sip of fluid, your body wakes up in a quiet state of dehydration. Your liver, which regulates fat metabolism and processes stored fat for energy, is working at reduced capacity. Your cortisol is already beginning its morning rise, and the first thing most people do in that exact moment is reach for coffee. Stanford neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman has described hitting a dehydrated, cortisol-rising body with immediate caffeine as close to pouring fuel on a fire that is already lit. The cortisol spike goes higher than it was going to go anyway. It stays elevated longer, and elevated morning cortisol is the primary hormonal driver of abdominal fat storage. Japan's response is almost embarrassingly simple. Before anything else, a glass of warm water. Not cold, warm. The warmth gently signals the digestive system to come back online after the fast of sleep. Many Japanese women add a small pinch of sea salt to replace the sodium and magnesium the body processes overnight. Magnesium specifically plays a role in regulating the cortisol system. It acts as a natural brake on that morning hormone spike rather than an accelerator. If your stomach handles it well, a squeeze of lemon adds vitamin C. A study from the University of Alabama found that vitamin C meaningfully reduced cortisol spikes following stress events. If lemon does not work for your stomach, plain warm water with a small pinch of salt produces most of the same effect. Your stomach comes first, always. Tonight, before you go to sleep, place a glass somewhere you will see it before you see your phone tomorrow morning. Warm water first, coffee second. That single reversal changes the hormonal starting point of your entire day. Stay with me. because habit 2 builds on what habit 1 starts. And most people are missing it for one specific reason. Habit number 2, the 5-minute action that sets up your hormones for the next 24 hours. Within the first 30 to 60 minutes after waking, your eyes need natural outdoor light, not through a window, not from a screen. Outside, where the full spectrum of daylight reaches your eyes without glass filtering it. Your body runs on a biological clock that governs when hormones are released, when metabolism peaks, and when fat is burned versus stored. This clock is calibrated every single morning by one input above all others: light. Dr. Satchin Panda at the Salk Institute has spent decades on exactly this. His research has consistently found that people who do not receive morning light show disrupted cortisol curves, impaired metabolic function, and elevated abdominal fat accumulation over time. The chain reaction is precise. Morning light triggers serotonin production during the day. That serotonin becomes the raw material for melatonin at night. Melatonin produces deeper restorative sleep. Deeper sleep produces a calmer cortisol curve the next morning. A calmer cortisol curve means less abdominal fat storage signal through the entire following day. One 5-minute action in the morning quietly sets up your hormones for the next 24 hours. Not the next hour, the next full day. In Japan, this is embedded in the concept of sanpo, a short, unhurried walk, often to a station or a nearby shrine, that millions of Japanese people take not for fitness, but because it is simply how morning begins. Warm water, then outside. 5 to 10 minutes. The reset starts immediately. And now, habit 3. This is the one I want you to pay attention to, because habit 3 directly contradicts what most people believe about their morning coffee, and it is the reason your afternoons feel the way they do. Habit number 3, the 90-minute rule, and why your morning coffee is causing your afternoon collapse. Do not drink coffee for the first 90 minutes after waking. Stay with me. When you wake up, your brain is saturated with a chemical called adenosine. Adenosine is the molecule responsible for the groggy, heavy feeling of early morning. Your body clears adenosine naturally within approximately 90 minutes of waking. Coffee works by blocking the receptors adenosine binds to, which is why it produces alertness. But if you drink coffee before that natural clearing has happened, you are not removing the adenosine. You are covering it. It sits behind the caffeine and waits. When the caffeine wears off, typically around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, all of that backlogged adenosine arrives at once. Your body reads this sudden chemical shift as a stress event. Cortisol rises in response. That afternoon cortisol rise drives sugar cravings, increases fat storage signals, and produces the particular kind of mid-afternoon exhaustion that most people have simply accepted as how afternoons feel. It is not how afternoons feel. It is what early morning coffee has been quietly setting up since 6 a.m. The Japanese concept of ma, the deliberate intentional gap, applied here simply means giving your body the 90 minutes it was going to use for adenosine clearing before you introduce a stimulant that interferes with that process. Dr. Huberman delays his own caffeine by 90 to 120 minutes every morning. His consistent description of the result is clean, sustained energy with no crash. Warm water, morning light, 90 minutes. Then coffee, 3 days. Give it 3 days before you decide what you think. Habit number 4, the one that Okinawa, one of the world's blue zones where people routinely live past 100, built its longevity around. Stop eating at 80% full. Not satisfied, not stuffed, 80%. This is the practice called Hara, Hachi, and it is observed at every meal by most people in Okinawa as a cultural automatic, not a conscious dietary decision. Here is the biology that makes it work. Your brain receives the satiety signal from your stomach approximately 20 minutes after sufficient food has arrived. 20 minutes. If you eat at the pace that most people were raised with, fork moving continuously, plate expected to be finished, you can consume significantly more than your body needs in those 20 minutes before the signal even arrives. A study published in the Journal of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics found that eating at half the usual pace reduced caloric intake by an average of 88 calories per meal without any subjective sense of deprivation. 88 calories, 3 meals, 7 days, without changing what you eat or removing anything from your plate. The practical method. Halfway through every meal, put your utensil completely down, not beside the plate, down. Take 3 slow breaths. Ask one question. If I stopped right now, would I feel fine in 20 minutes? The 3-breath pause is not a mindfulness practice. It is a biological intervention that gives the satiety signal enough time to begin arriving before you have eaten past it. Chopsticks and small serving dishes build this pause into every Japanese meal naturally. 3 breaths and a single question build it into yours. Habit number 5, the one I told you about at the beginning, the one that works against you even when you think you are doing everything right. Most women trying to address abdominal fat believe the answer is more intensity, higher heart rate, harder workouts, more calories burned per session. The research on abdominal fat specifically tells a different story. A study published in the Journal of Endocrinological Investigation found that high-intensity exercise performed during the morning cortisol window can keep cortisol elevated for up to 4 hours after the workout ends. You feel the endorphins in the moment. The energy feels productive. But hormonally, your body has spent those 4 hours in an elevated stress and fat storage state. For many women, intense morning exercise is not solving the abdominal fat problem. It is contributing to it. Japan's answer is the Sampo, a gentle, purposeful morning walk, 20 to 30 minutes, unhurried, outside, with your eyes open and your phone in your pocket. Stanford researchers identified something called optic flow, the visual experience of the world moving past your peripheral vision as you walk forward through it. This specific pattern of visual motion has a documented calming effect on the amygdala, the brain's primary threat detection center. When the amygdala calms, cortisol de-escalates. When morning cortisol de-escalates, the abdominal fat storage signal diminishes. Additionally, a study from George Washington University found that 3 10-minute walks taken after meals reduced blood sugar spikes by up to 58%. Blood sugar regulation is the direct upstream mechanism for insulin control, and insulin, not calories alone, is the primary hormonal driver of abdominal fat storage. The morning walk addresses cortisol, the post-meal walk addresses insulin. Together, they target the 2 primary hormonal drivers of abdominal fat without a single minute in a gym. Tomorrow morning, 20 minutes. No phone in hand for the first 10. Let the world move past your peripheral vision. That optic flow is the mechanism. Let it work. Habit number 6, Japan's daily internal metabolic heater. Japan drinks green tea multiple times daily, not as a wellness trend, not as a supplement strategy, simply as what is in the cup. The active compound responsible for its metabolic effect is EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. Here is what EGCG actually does. It gently raises your resting metabolic rate, meaning your body burns slightly more energy at rest than it would without it. Not dramatically, consistently, every day over time in the direction of less stored fat and more burned energy. A review published in Obesity Reviews found that regular green tea consumption was associated with significantly reduced waist circumference specifically, crediting the combination of EGCG and green tea's natural modest caffeine content working together. More than 200 peer-reviewed studies have examined EGCG. The consistent findings across institutions, including Harvard Medical School, include improved insulin sensitivity, enhanced liver metabolic function, reduced systemic inflammation, and that quiet, consistent increase in fat oxidation at rest. But here is why Japan actually drinks it, and this is the part that most Western summaries miss entirely. Not for the EGCG, for the 2 minutes of stillness that making and holding a cup of tea creates in the middle of a busy morning. The warm cup held without a screen, the deliberate pause, the MA, the intentional gap between the demands of the day that Japan builds into every morning. Replace your second coffee with green tea tomorrow. Mid-morning, between 10 and noon, after the adenosine has cleared and morning cortisol has naturally begun to decline. Give it 3 weeks. The waist circumference research used 3 weeks as its minimum measurement window. And now, habit 7, the one I told you about at the beginning, the one that nobody mentions, the one that quietly undoes every single habit that came before it when it is missing. For the first 30 minutes after waking, do not look at your phone. Research from IDC found that 80% of smartphone users check their devices within 15 minutes of waking. Most people reading this are inside that 80%. Here is exactly what that does to every habit on this list. The moment your eyes land on your phone screen, your brain receives a flood of incoming information. Each notification, each headline, each piece of incoming data triggers a micro spike of dopamine, paired with a micro spike of cortisol. Within 5 minutes of morning scrolling, your nervous system has shifted from the naturally declining cortisol state of waking into a reactive, elevated, alert state. Dr. Anna Lemke at Stanford, whose research on dopamine and compulsive behavior is among the most cited in modern psychiatry, has documented that early morning stimulation raises the brain's dopamine threshold for the entire rest of the day. Your brain now requires more stimulation, more urgency, more cortisol-driven alertness just to feel normal, which means more cortisol sustained for longer, which means more abdominal fat storage signals sustained for longer every single day. Your phone at 6 in the morning undoes the warm water. It undoes the morning light. It fires the cortisol system before the morning has had any chance to regulate itself. This is why most morning routines eventually fail, not because the habits are wrong, because the phone is checked before they have had a chance to do anything. In Japan, the concept of seijaku, stillness and tranquility, is not a formal practice or a scheduled meditation. It is simply the understanding that the first 30 minutes of the day belong to you before they belong to the world. Warm water, light, a walk, tea, breakfast eaten slowly, the morning completing itself before you hand it to anyone else. Tonight, move your phone charger to the other side of the room, not as a punishment, to remove the decision from tomorrow morning entirely. When the phone is not within reach, you do not have to choose not to look at it. The choice is already made. 7 habits, every one of them free. Every one of them available tomorrow morning in the life you already have. Warm water before coffee with lemon if your stomach handles it, with sea salt if it does not. Morning light within 60 minutes of sunrise. 90 minutes before your first coffee. 80% full at every meal, with 3 breaths at the halfway point. A 20-minute gentle walk with your eyes open and your phone in your pocket. Green tea mid-morning held without a screen. And 30 minutes of seijaku, your morning belonging to you before it belongs to the world. These are not hacks. They are not a program to follow perfectly and abandon by the following Friday. They are the daily architecture of a body that was never asked to fight itself. Japan did not discover these habits. It simply never stopped practicing them, while the rest of the world built diets, supplements, and gym memberships around a problem that was hormonal from the beginning. The fat around your middle is not proof that you are failing. It is proof that nobody gave you the right information about what is actually causing it. Starting tomorrow morning, you have it. Before you go, one question. Of these 7 habits, which one produced a specific feeling of recognition when you heard it? Not the most interesting one, the one that felt true about your own morning before I finished the sentence. Leave it in the comments. I read every one. And if this changed something about how you understand what your body actually needs, share it with one woman in your life who has been working incredibly hard and running out of explanations for why nothing is moving. The explanation may be simpler than either of you thought. Take care of yourselves. We will see you in the next one.